Within their graves were the death pits, holes in the ground filled with men and women who had been slaughtered and then tossed inside as sacrifice. Researchers believe the victims were killed to be companions for their king or queen in the afterlife, forced to be slaves to their masters, even in death.
Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. My name is Utikas if you are new, and yeah, without wasting any time, let's get to the video.
Yashima Castle. These days, Yashima Castle is in such a poor state that it hardly even looks like a castle anymore. There are no more walls, and the only things remaining of the original structure are its foundation and a piece of its main gate. When it was built in 667 AD by the Yamato dynasty, Yashima Castle was an impenetrable mountain fortress. The castle was built on a mesa to take full advantage of the terrain, with its walls spanning about 3 miles. The Japanese integrated the walls of the castle with the natural walls of the mountain to make it even stronger. Over 1,300 years ago, this place looked like something out of a fairy tale, with tall walls, imposing stone gateways, and vantage points looking down into the lands below. The whole point of the castle in its prime was to defend Japan against invasion. It was built specifically on the coast of the Seto Inland Sea to defend against the Chinese Tang and the Silla Kingdom of Korea. Number 4.
Yeah, that would have looked impressive if you are there looking at it, and yeah, I'd love to see something like that today. You know, I've never thought that you could actually like build a castle or a fort inside or through a mountain. It's only like but I think it'd look impressive to see it in its prime.
The Royal Tombs of Between 1922 and 1934, archaeologists excavated the ancient Sumerian city of located in modern Iraq. Was a legendary place, one of the greatest cities of Mesopotamia at the dawn of civilization. Was built during the Ubaid period in 3800 BC, almost 6,000 years ago, and it continued to grow and prosper until 500 BC when it was abandoned. The city was part of the development of human civilization for 3,300 years, an unbelievable span of time, and something beyond the scope of what most people can even imagine. They worshipped the Akkadian moon god Nana and built the majestic ziggurat of arguably the first true wonder of the world. During excavations in the 1920s, excavators found a deep shaft which led to the royal tombs of In the following years, researchers unveiled 16 royal burials. They found sunken stone chambers with vaulted roofs similar to the tombs in ancient Egypt. Unfortunately, many of them had already been pillaged by grave robbers. Even still, there were a lot of relics to be found. Everything from golden daggers to statues of gold, and musical instruments decorated with golden bullheads. There was so much treasure even the looters never managed to carry it all away. But beyond the treasure was something horrifying. Archaeologists identified the graves of multiple high-status individuals who had likely been kings and queens. Evidence of elaborate funerary rituals involving human sacrifice was found alongside these graves on an unprecedented scale. Within their graves were the death pits, holes in the ground filled with men and women who had been slaughtered and then tossed inside as sacrifice. Researchers believe the victims were killed to be companions for their king or queen in the afterlife, forced to be slaves to their masters, even in death. Number 3.
Imagine living your entire life like a slave, then dying as a slave so that you could like serve your master in the afterlife. It reminds me of like some Egyptian concubines who had to die with their husbands when their husbands got old, or kings or whatever. That's really sad. Imagine dying for someone else while you are like completely healthy. But yeah, a lot of kings and queens back in those days were like that, all over the world, I think.
Old Pitsligo Church. The old Pitsligo Church was built in Scotland around the year 1630. It can be found in Fraserburgh, and it has most certainly seen better days. The church is missing its roof, its walls look like they're about to fall down, and the gravestones are stained with years of bird excrement. It looks like any one of the hundreds of old churches gradually falling into disrepair across the UK. But the old Pitsligo Church has one mysterious feature not all churches do. It has a burial vault. The south aisle of the church served as a family burial vault for the Forbes of Pitsligo from between 1636 to 1781. The Forbes personal family castle, known as Pitsligo Castle, stands just a little north of the old church on the outskirts of Rosehardy. You can see the old family crest over the western doorway of the church, and outside the church you can find over 100 tombstones. They date as far back as 1643, with some of the earliest table stone memorials being carved with gruesome symbols of mortality, like an hourglass. One of the biggest gravestones on the property belongs to a man named Alexander Swan, who died in 1678. It's decorated with a ghoulish carving of a skull and crossbones. Number 2. Chanoff Castle. Historical records show the lords of Ramosk appearing around the 12th century AD in Switzerland. In that same century, they built the oldest part of the Chanoff Castle, a tower looking out at the grand snowy peaks of the Swiss mountains and down into the forested valleys below. In the 13th century, the lords of Ramosk added to the small tower, improving upon the fortification and building a real-life storybook castle in the mountains. Although for them, it wasn't a fairy tale castle. It was an important fortification which allowed their family to control trade and taxes in the region. Having such a great fortress allowed them to control all the peasants within their grasp and steal their money through the tax system. Unfortunately for the Ramosk family, a family dispute ruined their legacy. A disagreement between the two eldest brothers ended with one of them being murdered and the other fleeing the castle. The castle was then handed over to the Match family in 1369. In 1780, the castle was mostly destroyed. Fortifications built in the mountains generally have a short lifespan due to Mother Nature being unruly. It was a landslide that brought the castle to ruins and forced local lords to abandon the property. Number 1.
Yeah, I doubt building castles or any type of building on like mountains or rough terrain is a good idea, but I think everyone knows that. But yeah, it's interesting to see that there were so many of them back in those days, and yeah, it's something that I'd like to see.
Lost Persian military base. 2,500 years ago, Persian king Cambyses II attacked Egypt. It was at the height of the Achaemenid Empire, and Egypt was in serious trouble as the Persians flowed across the Nile and invaded. All of these years later, archaeologists believe they have discovered a campsite that was used by the Persians during their invasion of Egypt. It was uncovered in northern Israel and was likely a Persian military base. The structure would have been bustling with soldiers preparing for war. The mighty Achaemenid Empire, or the Persian Empire, was founded by Cyrus the Great around the year 580 BC. He conquered the Medians, the Lydians, and the Neo-Babylonians and expanded his territory. His son, Cambyses II, wanted to continue expanding the empire and destroying enemies, so he gathered a great army and brought them into Palestine. This was where he began to assemble one of the greatest armies the world had ever seen. One of the places they gathered in preparation was this newly discovered military camp. Then, around 520 BC, Cambyses directed his forces down into Egypt. The camp would have remained functional as a kind of depot during the war. The immense army required a huge amount of resources, and so there were supply points all the way from Egypt into Persia, and this was one of them. Thanks for watching! Which of these mysterious ancient places would you love to visit? Let me know in the comments below.
Yeah, I'd like to visit all of them, but yeah, I think they're in ruin now. But it's interesting to see the kind of buildings the people back then used to make. I think they looked much better than ours today. Well, like aesthetic wise. Nowadays buildings are all the same shape, same design, same everything, but yeah, it's expensive to build things nowadays with the economy and stuff. But yeah, which of those five locations would you like to visit? And yeah, thank you, and see you amazing people in the next video.
Kick